How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Taival Outdoors. My name is Joel, this is Rokka, and we are doing our first overnight trip together, so thanks for joining in. Since this is our first overnight trip together, although we've done day hikes of course and things like that, our plan is rather simple. Today we're just going to walk for a short distance to a campfire site, which I'm afraid is probably going to be quite busy, but since it is Thursday today, I doubt that people are going to stay there for the night. And then set up my new pyramid style slash TP tent. Hopefully have a nice fire, make some lunch, dinner, sausages, things like that tonight, and just enjoy this calm and beautiful spring day. Tomorrow we will do a bit more actual hiking then, once we've probably rested and Rokka has sort of hopefully settled into this environment, and we'll go see a local trail and then hopefully find this spot where there should be quite nice views from higher up looking over this whole area. So that's the plan, at least. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Look at this. We have the whole place just for us. I swear though that I heard some cars driving this way, coming to the nearest parking lot. We started a bit further that way. But I suspect then that those were perhaps some MTB riders, cyclists. These trails around this region, this Poron Polku where we are right now, are quite popular among them, and for a good reason. They are great trails. Haven't been here with a fat bike myself yet, but we'll have to do that maybe later on this summer. There are no firewood here, or at least not much. We did pass the place where there used to be, I think there used to be like a firewood shed or something, but I didn't see it right now, but there was something there. So I'm sure that we're gonna get some type of fire going. But first, I might not know a lot about backpacking with the dog, but I know the first thing is to take care of your dog, and after that you start taking care of yourself. So let's do that. I have quite a big backpack and carrying system with me for two reasons actually. First, I have the complete tent inside of this, and second, I just got this Eberle stock F1 mainframe external frame for my rucksack, and I've only tested it now once. That was during last Saturday, Varustellekas remote military march. I did 50 kilometers with this setup, and now I'm testing it again and testing all the how the padding works, waist belt works, and so forth, how it fits in around my body, on my back. So that's the other reason. But anyway, enough chit chat. I'm also here to test my new tent, so I figured this would be a pretty sweet spot. It was also one of the only dry spots that I could find. The ground is quite wet still in many places, so right by the pond here, or small lake maybe, whatever. Yeah, let's set up the tent and see how it goes. All right, here she is. I'm a bit worried because the ground is very soft and these standard aluminium stakes are very tiny. I have been looking into getting a bit bigger titanium ones, but haven't made that purchase just yet. But anyway, it is what it is. In terms of the inside, there's good space for both of us. Rocco is going crazy now with the water ball. I think he needs some food, as so do I. But anyway, looking good, bit slanted, but that's okay. I just put my head there, no big deal. But now I'll get the crazy doggo some food. Ota. Yeah, it will take a bit longer for my meal to be ready. Right, Rocco. Hey. Alright, so I just finished setting up my sleep system for tonight. It's going to get down to -2 in the early morning hours, and this sleeping bag is only rated for +1 Celsius. So as usual, I have my silk liner and a bivy bag with me. Nothing super special about this setup, except that I recently switched from my To Go Systems Velar UL bivy bag to To Go Systems poncho, made from exactly the same material. But in this bivy configuration, I believe it is a bit bigger than Velar UL. So I think I will be able to have this inflatable sleeping mat inside of it with these bags. And myself, you know, I'm a side sleeper, so with Velar UL, this setup inside the bivy bag would have been a bit tight for me at least. But I want to give this poncho bivy setup a shot and see if this actually works now also inside of it. And then I also have my old German army surplus sleeping pad that I figured I bring along for the dog, and I will have to lay that somewhere here. And again, this is my first night with this shelter, and it's Rocca's first night ever sleeping outside, so we'll see how it goes. So we had our late dinner. We both had lamb, actually. Rocca has some lamb ribs, and I had some sausages, as I mentioned, I think before. There were a couple of other people here, and we spent past few hours just chatting and making food and things like that. The evening and the weather has been absolutely stunning. No wind whatsoever. The sun is just about to set. Only few distant birds. That's about it. And apparently still one hungry dog. I don't know how that is possible, because he has had all of his own food and some of mine. So. But I guess that's just the nature of Alaskan Malamutes. I'm waiting for the fire to die down, and then I guess it's time for us to try to settle in for the night, see how it goes with this guy. I will probably close up the whole shelter so that we are protected from all sides. I don't suspect any rain, any winds during the night. but I think it will be easier for the dog if there's less of things to distract and annoy him during the night. But all in all, I mean, just look at this incredible looking place and evening. I'm very happy about this trip already. Alright, so here we are inside of this Lux Mini Peak XL pyramid shaped little tarp tent. I will give you all my first impressions of this shelter tomorrow morning after I've actually slept one night here. I can show you a bit around how it looks. So there's the Bundeswehr old military surplus sleeping pad or mat, and there's a Rocca who absolutely didn't appreciate or understand that this was for him, but that's fine, he can sleep wherever he wants. And I do have this type of a screw thingy that I could use to screw in the ground and then attach Rocca to it, but instead I figured that I will just put him on this leash and attached to this center pole, and center pole is a few centimeters down in the ground, so should be pretty safe. I have a little thingy here where I put my light. If someone knows a smaller and lighter one, this type of a pole attachment thing, then please let me know, because that's a bit too big for this shelter. This side of the tent is drooping down a bit, so I just put my rucksack there, it holds it up a bit more. Pants are there, charging my phone, some additional gear there. All in all, feels super spacious inside of it, but I am still looking for a good sized mosquito net inside of this, so at least with a big inner mesh tent, dog would be then also safely away from any biting insects. For myself, of course, just a simple mesh like mosquito head net will do the trick, but that doesn't work for him, so need to find a good pyramid shaped mosquito net somewhere. But I think we start to settle in for the night, and I'll bring you guys back then in the morning. Hopefully we'll make it all safe and sound. Good morning, everyone. Huomenta, Rocca. Mm. 6:55. Time for some coffee. Another great looking day. He likes to chew on those ice blocks, so I didn't change the water because of that. For breakfast I have my last tactical food pack, oatmeal and apples, that I got from the big emergency supply bucket that I reviewed last year. And I will top it all off with 5-11's Energy for the front lines. There's chocolate and coconut flavored. This is like a powder, protein powder basically, but it has 500 calories in this one pouch. Added vitamins, high protein instant meal. Good way to boost your morning porridge. A lot of bird activity this morning. That seems about right. Then I will add some more water here. Cannot forget the coffee. And in case you were wondering why my spoon was in there as well, that's the way I clean my spoon. So I put it there while water is boiling. It's definitely still quite chilly, maybe +1. There's still frost on the ground, so it did go below 0 last night. Let's test this. It's like chocolate porridge. All right, it's time to start packing my things up. But before I do that, I promised you all that I will give you my first impressions of this nifty little shelter. So this is Lux Outdoor Mini-Peak XL. And why I went with this Mini-Peak lineup instead of the more traditional, like round TP shaped, I believe that's called Hex Peak or Hex Peak XL, is because this type of pyramid shape, first of all, I think it makes a lot more sense in terms of how you sleep, especially with 2 people, and how you organize your gear. Round shelters never made much sense to me, to be honest. And second thing, which is even more important, is that this can be set up with just 4 stakes and then the center pole. So 1 in each corner, center pole up, and it's pretty much done. Anything else you add, like guy lines and other like stakes and so forth, are just a bonus. So quick setup. I did look for a long time at the Seek Outside Cimarron Light. They've done many things, in my opinion, better than what Lux Outdoor has with this shelter, but in the end it was going to be so much more expensive than this. This was only 239 euros, I think. So for that price, it is pretty amazing little shelter. Did I get condensation? Yes, of course, single wall tent, that is to be expected. This did come with like a winter inner tent that takes up half of the space, but I don't really have a need for that. And once the dog gets more experience with me going outdoors, spending night outdoors, then I will probably not close this up, so the condensation won't be that big of a deal at that point. However, I did notice one thing regarding ventilation and condensation in general, and that is these vents. Look how tiny they are. In fact, when looking from inside of the shelter, it almost looks like there's no gap at all here. And I figured that it is because this strap, this thingy that is supposed to keep this up, starts from up here. Hopefully you guys can see that, but up here almost seems like a design or manufacturer error. If this would begin here, it would actually pull this way further, like so, increasing the ventilation a lot. So I don't know if this is made to be like this, but with this design it's not good. And that's probably something that I will have to fix myself. I will remove this original piece, add proper Velcro to it, and then attach it to the bottom of this Velcro, and then here to really increase the ventilation capabilities of this little shelter. In terms of waterproofness, of course, I have no idea at this point. My biggest concerns are this flap, because this is a hot tent, and when rain comes here, it then sits directly against this Velcro strip. And for some reason, which frankly I just cannot wrap my head around, not all seams in this tent had been seam sealed. This tent did come with like this small tube of seam sealant, and any one of you who has done seam sealing knows that the tape is so much better, or at least easier to apply than some crappy seam sealant with very hard brush. So I did my best to seam seal all the zippers as well as this flap, but it will take one very rainy trip to see if I did any good job or not. But anyway, interesting shelter. Could easily fits all of our gear, both of us, and definitely the inner tent designs are a bit stupid in a way that they are only meant for one person, whereas there's clearly space for two people. And indeed, this can be hung up with a string. So if I would have just a string or a piece of cordage between these two trees and wouldn't have the center pole, this would easily fit 3 guys side by side. Maybe not all of the gear, but still. So there's plenty of space inside, yet the inner tents are all made so that only one guy can get into the inner tent. So it's a bit of a mismatch in that sense. Well, those were my first impressions of Lux Outdoor Mini Peak XL. Now time to pack all our gear, give the dog some food, some energy, and then head down on the trail. All right, we are getting ready to leave this campsite, but before going, just wanted to quickly show my hands-free setup with the dog. So I have here non-stop dog wear bungee leash, which flexes quite a bit. I have this very sturdy 511 belt with this quite rigid loop. I have a good carabiner here and just put the leash on there. This allows me to, as I said, go hands-free, so I don't have to worry about the dog. The leash does flex quite a lot because this is meant for other sports, not so much for this use necessarily. So good for example, when I'm fat biking or skiing with the dog. However, because it does flex so much, it means that the dog cannot yank me in some weird direction when I'm wearing a heavy backpack, but also I don't have a lot of control to the dog. So I know that non-stop dog wear does these leashes where it's half bungee, half non-flexible, so maybe that's the optimal solution for this then. But if any of you do hike with the dog and use something similar like this, please let me know if there's a better way of doing it. But this is as good as I've managed to do with the stuff that I already had. So far working quite nicely. But sun is out, summer is coming, although it may be +3 degrees. But anyway, you got to take the opportunities when you can. So shades go on. Let's go. There's some burned woodland there. You can tell that it is a controlled burn because all the foliage and smaller stuff has burned, but trees are still alive, and there's this wide safety zone protecting the rest of the forest. As you can probably tell, most of these trees are roughly the same age, and usually that is the sign that this forest has been cut down for lumber. And burning parts of it is one way of making this, in layman terms, I would say making this forest less boring. So having a bit more diversity and new type of growth for new species, birds and insects in particular. This is what I mean, controlling the dog. Not much to do with this leash. Well, that steep climb was definitely worth it. Really cool section of trail right now. Drops down on both sides. I did this section, was it now 3 or more likely 4 years ago when I was here last time with a buddy of mine. And this week when I decided to come to this area again, I also decided that I want to do this part of the trail again, because it is so nice and unique, and although it's very thick woods, so you cannot really see that far away, but it still feels quite cool walking up here. I believe when we get to the end of this part of the trail, or this section, then we loop around and come back somewhere down there. Now the downhill begins. This would be so cool trail to ride with the fast bike. I'm thinking that next time I'm here, I'm definitely with the bike. These trails are so nice, so nice. I think it's time to do a bit of a detour. Rakka, oikein. Because I feel like doing this bit of a hydration break, and I could use some snacks as well. There's a pond just over here, so I'll go to the shore and take a small break. Final pit stop before we start climbing those hills again, and hopefully finding that, what would you call it, the scenic lookout. Anyway, there should be some type of a rest spot up there. Hopefully we'll find it and I can have some lunch there. It's one of those days when you're in the shade, there's a slight breeze, it gets very chilly very quickly, but when you're in the sun and if the wind stops, it's very warm. So tough weather to walk or hike. And of course I try to go by as many of these ponds as possible so the little guy can get a sip of water when needed. That water definitely recharged him. He's just blazing up this hill. Whew. I think we found our spot. I don't see much of a table or anything, but this will definitely work as a seat. Not bad view. This is one of the reasons why I like this type of a valve for hydration bladders. I can not only fill my own cups when needed, but also now his cup. It looks like he's thirsty again. So as planned, this will be a bit longer break, like a proper break, because after all, Rokka is still just a puppy, 6.5 months old. So it's good for him to take a bit longer breaks during these day hikes. And that's why I left this food that will take like forever, 15 minutes to rehydrate once I add the water, and then also took socks and boots off, air out my feet. So a proper longer break for myself as well. Well, that meal was absolutely terrible. It was one of those that's full of soy and palm oil, and you could taste it, definitely. But good thing I had some beef jerky and nuts to as a dessert to take the nasty flavor away. Now still final drinks and off we go again. Probably need to check where we should be going. It is quite a drop to down there. But it's time for move on for us. It says somewhat that way. Melkein erämaa, almost wilderness. I like it. If we cannot make it all the way to the real wilderness, then I'll take this almost wilderness. Has been treating us well, at least. I'm fairly sure that this is the right way to go. At least it seems that Rokka feels confident regarding this trail. Apparently we are standing on Ruski Mountain. There's a bit of a story there referring that, or saying that there's 3 different stories actually about how this place got its name. One refers to Russian, some kind of military group, maybe pushing cannons on top of here or over this in year 1809. The other story is about Russians and Swedes having some sort of a skirmish at Luutasua, which was the place where we stayed last night. And apparently the Russians then, or allegedly, withdraw here. And then the third story is that some local shepherd girl fell in love to some Ruski, I guess. Anyway, Ruski Mountain. Looks to me exactly like the other mountains we've crossed today. Again, nice little pond and steep hill side all around. But of course, Rokka doesn't mind going downhill. It's going downhill. It is easy. We are now actually on the other side of this burnt area that we saw this morning, and as far as I know or can tell by the map, it looks like this is again one of those spots that we are not actually on the correct trail, but there's a lot of these paths, trails, single track, and the Samo trail that we were following is marked only in clockwise direction, where we are doing it counterclockwise. But it doesn't really matter, we are going to the right direction anyway. Freaky looking forest indeed. Burnt green. Burnt green. Mysterious block of stone on a little mound. Not marked on my maps. I don't know, I'll have to pick up any information I can find on that. But on the positive side of things, we are back on the trail. As I said, we were not that far away, but still not on the official trail. Last patches of snow. He's an Arctic breed, all right. So here we are, Lähtö starting point, Luutaharjun Samo hiking route. Although we didn't start here, but yesterday we did start by Luutalammi, so that's found over there. We are on our final stretch on this dirt road, so I guess that means it's time to give a quick summary of this adventure. All in all, I think things went better than expected. At least I was a bit nervous about the night, but Rokka fell asleep quite quickly and slept well all the way until the morning, even though the birds and other sounds of the nature started picking up quite a bit in the early morning hours compared to last night. Still, that was pretty much the only thing that I was a bit worried about how it will go, but it went well in my opinion. In terms of today's hike and distances and things like that, I think it was very much doable for the dog. He is going there, leading the way as we speak. There was quite a bit of uphill during today, and that was more of a workout for me with this rucksack. So it turned out to be probably more difficult for me and easier for the dog than I expected. But that's a good thing. That's exactly how things should go, at least in my opinion, when hiking and backpacking with the dog. Of course, as I said, I'm a complete noob when it comes to this stuff, so all tips and tricks are very much welcomed, as well as if you know any good pyramid shape mosquito tents that would go nicely inside of the shelter. That would be really appreciated. And if you've been watching this far, leave a comment down below with the code word banana in it somewhere. We'll see how many actually made it. My name is Joel. This is Rokka. Eager to move on. You've been watching Taival Outdoors. Thank you so much. We will see you all in the next one.